Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 305. I'm delighted to welcome onto the podcast today Aaron Hull. Aaron, how are we doing?
You lads, pleasure to be on.
Thank you for coming on, mate. I've obviously got anyone that's watching on video will be able to see that my co-host Jordan is back. And he's back by popular demand, but also because he's going to give quite a good perspective on the podcast today, because Aaron and Jordan have worked very closely together. So it'll be great to get Jordan's perspective on working with Aaron, and then we can get the truth about working with Jordan as well. So that's probably more important. But just before I get Aaron to go into his background, Jordan, I thought it'd be good. I said before we recorded, I've done this with a few people that I've worked with closely. How would you introduce Aaron? Not just in terms of job title, but in terms of professional.
Yeah, great start. I'll leave out the office cricket and what he's like as a batsman for later. You can go into that. But no, I think first of all, Aaron go into job titles and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like you said, I've worked with Aaron very closely, and I think it's never easy when you come across from Australia or a different country to work in an English setup, as we've found on previous podcasts. People do say, Jerome said it as well, different nations have different ways of doing things. But yeah, Aaron hit the ground running when we came in at Bournemouth, and it was a real breath of fresh air, really. Very good, challenging questions, and wanted to push the program forward from day one. And yeah, just a very good practitioner to work with. There's all the nice things to say, and then I've got loads of things. But he's a very good batsman. Off his cricket, he's very hard to get out. He scores well, so lots of gripes over that. And when it was Ashes season, there was a lot of banter flying around. But he's a good bloke overall, and I think that's quite often that's the main thing when you want to work with someone in it. You get on with them. So yeah, there you go, Aaron. That's all the nice things I'm going to say about you now.
Now he's going to rip.
Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Yeah. I'm used to it. I'm well used to it. That's for sure.
Aaron, we like we always start these in the same way. Your background, give us a little bit of an insight into your career so far.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ben. I think George touched on it a little bit. Obviously, grew up in Australia. Completed, my schooling and university back there. I did a sports science degree to start off with. And then, moved into the physio world. So I completed a Bachelor of Physiotherapy straight after my sports. And during that time was able to work as a strength and conditioning coach at the Brisbane Lions Academy, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an elite Australian rules football organisation in Brisbane. From there, I went and worked in a Australian private clinic for 5 years as a physiotherapist. Just learning the physio 101, how to communicate and treat people from all walks of life. And after 5 years doing that, made the transition over to the UK and started with an academy physio at AFC Bournemouth, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a professional football club in England, and now entering my third season at the club. So I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit more some of that as we go through, but that's a short, sharp summary of how I've ended up here.
I always love kicking off with people that have got experiences in different sports, but also different countries as well, just to see what perspectives are when you come over to the UK and see how we work in the UK, but also in football more specifically as well. So what was that initial perspective coming into the role at Bournemouth, seeing the work that was going on? What was the initial thoughts compared to over in Oz?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's one of those ones that you're not going to be able to answer that unless you do it. And so as I said, I'm into my third season now, and look, Australia and the UK are quite similar in terms of how we go about our day-to-day lives and things like that. But I think sort of growing up following football, sort of understanding the game as a fan, when you come over into this environment, you have to be respectful of that, in that the football over here is king and skill is king. And that was probably something that I did really sort of initially realize that the day-to-day workings are very, very much revolved around football and the actual game of it. So in Australia, it's probably a little bit more like we don't have the academy setups. Essentially, they're sort of starting to come into play now, but traditionally we haven't had that. So we've got academies, but they're not full time. And if a player is lucky enough to be drafted at the age of 17 or 18, they would literally then just go straight into a men's full-time program. So coming over here, seeing like a full-time program for the younger ages was very different. Something that I came over, I had to initially just take a step back and get the lay of the land and see how things operate. And yeah, I think that would be the biggest difference that I did notice, is that from a very, very young age over here, the technical, tactical side of things is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. Jordan, what was any questions that you had for Aaron early on in the podcast?
Yeah, I think the main one, obviously, I know you well, Aaron, but the having that background of an S&C perspective, a sports science perspective, obviously, because you did your sports science undergrad before the physio one, did that make the transition, easier into football? Because obviously, well, as you know, at Bournemouth and a lot of other clubs in England, the multidisciplinary team approach is quite big, and obviously I work very closely with you and work very closely with the other physios and sports therapists at Bournemouth. Did you, having that knowledge and that background of the S&C roles that you've done over in Oz, do you think that was vital? Did that kind of help you step in and make it a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's been pretty important for me to have that's obviously education and then practical experience across both worlds. So sports science, strength and conditioning, and then more of the medical side with physio. And that was something I identified quite early on in my studies, that wanting to work in high performance sport one day. And always had the goal of working over in Europe in football. Is that identifying that early, that talking about performance here, like although they are separate entities, like the medical and the performance models, like there's a massive overlap between them. And being able to be in the room, have those conversations with the sports scientists, with the strength and conditioning coaches, with the physios. I'm not an expert in anything, but being able to sit around that table and relate to people, understand what they are talking about, and then obviously give my opinion or what I think can help improve the program has been really massive. And I think it's probably something that people do struggle with if you more a sports scientist or a strength and conditioning coach. It's trying to understand the medical side of things, tissue healing principles, early acute phase of that actual injury protocol. Likewise, you can have physio, very, very good clinicians, really good in the acute phase, the early stages, but really struggle with bridging that gap between, coming off the treatment table, and how do we actually get this player to a level where they can actually return, not just to play, but to actually perform better. And although we don't want injuries, one of my big philosophies is that it is a massive opportunity to actually become a better player in that process. And you get time in that process that you don't usually get if you're out there training and playing all the time, especially if it is a long-term injury. So I think for me it's been, I'm very happy. I've worked hard to go through that process and be able to work right along that continuum. And I've had some mentors and good people along the way who've encouraged me to do, like even through getting my accredited strength and conditioning coach badge in Australia through the ASCA, which is equivalent to the UKSCA over here. Again, going through that process, being able to work on the gym floor with either an individual athlete or a large group of athletes, be confident, competent to, again, not an expert in it, but take athletes through a squat pattern or a hinge pattern, work on basic, running biomechanics in that early transition off the treatment table out of the gym onto pitch. Can we work them through basic acceleration mechanics, max velocity mechanics? I think as a physio, it's been a really, really good thing to be able to do, and assist that whole process. And as you said, George, like coming in over here, where we have lots of numbers of players, you can potentially have a lot of injuries at certain times. Being able to be that person who's versatile, who can fit in, people can trust early, has been massive.
I think that's really important, isn't it? And again, I've seen it firsthand, but we spoke about on previous podcasts as well, having physios or therapists and sports therapists, etc., who are happy to not cross that threshold, because like you say, there's a massive merge between, but be able to kind of take the player away from the treatment table and actually say, right, yes, you're injured, but here's an opportunity now to work on all these other areas of, let's call it, of your S&C profile. That's so important in it, and as the S&C coach or the sports scientist, it's awesome, because then you've got another pair of eyes, an experienced pair of eyes that you, like you said there, you can trust to kind of give you that other perspective as well. And it might, your eye from a medical side of things might pick up on something that the S&C or the sports scientist eye hasn't quite picked up on, and then before you know it, you've got this lovely blend of multiple opinions trying to shape a player. And in my opinion, that sort of thing is obviously going to be probably more beneficial than just one person who's cracking on with it and trying to improve that player. So I mean, kudos to like all that you've said there, because it definitely, I've seen it firsthand. Like I say, I've seen it work, and it's definitely worked with a lot of the players you've worked with. So I think certainly the question I am getting to is for younger practitioners. Let's say somebody who is looking at maybe going down the sports therapy route or physiotherapy route. It's not often you see them go across into S&C as well, or get qualified, like you say, through ASCA or UKCA in this country, like you said. Is that something you recommend? Do you think that's something that's important to do?
Yeah, I think it is, if you want to work in any sort of high performance sport. Obviously, you need to stay in your lane at times. If you're a physiotherapist, sports therapist, you need to be good at that. You need to make an accurate diagnosis, put a treatment plan together, and communicate that to the right people. But in saying that, I think it's extremely beneficial to, from an early age, maybe find a mentor, a strength and conditioning coach or a sports scientist, spend time around that person. You can watch some sessions. I think that's crucial. And likewise for physios as well. Like, if you haven't gone that path, being able to find a strength and conditioning coach or sports scientist and spend time around them. And then, because as you hit the nail on the head before, it's a blend. Again, in this industry, they're not separate entities. I think the days are well and truly gone of physios versus sports scientists. It has to be an integrated performance and health model now. So that would be my advice, to young practitioners. Find them, spend some time around them, even once a month, once every few months, catch up for a coffee, get them to critique a program that you've put together in the gym, get that feedback. Yes, get your accreditations. There's multiple accreditations you can get that are out there, but it will just give you a basic understanding of the language of the sports science and the strength and conditioning world. And it's actually quite, for me, it's a fulfilling part of the role as well, like being able to sort of once a player and athlete's transitioned off the treatment table to actually spend time with the pigs in the mud in the gym and on pitch, like for me, that's the really exciting part of the role, because that's where you can actually really help this person towards their goals or their ambitions or whatever they're trying to achieve, rather than seeing it as a transaction where my job's done now. It's someone else's problem. So again, it's purposeful work for me, and that's the really exciting part of it. So I hope that helps. And I mean, I've been through this process, so if anyone wants to reach out, more than want to chat to people.
Jordan, just on that, so we're speaking of the perspective on the sort of sports science S&C side about Aaron's understanding of what we do. How did that switch to you for your understanding when you were in your role at the club for what he was doing? How much detail did you need to know to be able to work together?
Good question. Yeah, it definitely it brought up some really good little reflective moments or questioning of things, certainly around the growth and maturation side, because Aaron and Chris Hicks, who's the other sports therapist who's dealing with the age groups who were affected by growth and maturation, we're talking kind of the youth development phase and some of the early cases of SEVs and things like that we saw in the foundation phase. They're the ones who are certainly suffering from a bit of pain or whatever it might be. It's Aaron or Chris that we're dealing with them from their side of things, and then it's obviously feeding back to me when I've got them in the gym or out on the pitch and saying, right, well, the squat pattern's completely affected. They might not be able to lunge because the knee, Osgood's is flaring up and their knees are really painful at the minute, but we can look at offloading in other ways. And then when you're thinking about I need to get a number of accels into the under 15s, or I need to do some top-up runs because 3 or 4 of the players didn't play any minutes of the weekend, so I need to get some high-speed running into them at the end, but 3 of those players are flaring up with Osgood's right now. How can I do that? All of a sudden you go, and actually I need to go back to the real biomechanics of this, and probably the early stage treatments that Aaron's had to do with those players. And then you're going right back to early stage and coming right away from numbers, GPS numbers and things like that. And it's just questioning your methods at times, just to kind of remind you, maybe not questioning, but putting those little reminders in there, like, hang on a minute, bigger picture. Yeah, you might have these really specific numbers that you've got to try and hit right at the performance end of the spectrum, but let's not forget there's also these challenges, growth maturation or injury challenges, which are still needing to be required. And yes, we can still work. And I think that's what Aaron was saying there in terms of there's opportunities when you are injured. I think, dare I say it, 10 years ago, I think a lot of people would have gone, oh, he's got his Osgoods, he can't run, he can't play, he can't train, he can't be in the gym. We'll just do uppers. Well, actually, I think we found ways that we could say, well, no, we can do that. We just work to a pain scale that he can run, and we avoid harsh decel movements, and we just keep it kind of more straight line, so there's not harsh changes of change of direction in there. Or we go in the gym, but we go kind of less knee flexion, and actually we're going to bend at the knees on a lunge pattern and things like that. And then we go actually more, can we do some more kind of isometric movements, and we can still get some strength gains done even whilst they're going through those movements. So again, a lot of that, I can't credit that to myself, but a lot of it is watching Aaron, listening to Aaron. We're in MDT meetings with the coaches, and we're talking about players and what their plan is for the week. Those players going through the growth maturation or injuries and stuff like that, that's where the more physio side of things, I don't like using that word, but that kind of early stage injury sort of stage is where you then have to go, actually, I do need to just check myself, refresh that knowledge and go from there. So that's probably quite a nice little picture really into how the whole picture looked. And I think like Aaron said, it's about maximising opportunities. Even when a player's injured or they're not at their 100%, there's still opportunities to get work into them. And that's something which has stayed with me throughout now. And I definitely like that approach. And flipping it on to you, Aaron, let's look at specifically growth and maturation. Did you find that was a really fun challenge for you, working with those younger age groups and trying to find ways to work with players that, like, maybe Osgood's has flared up or Severs is really flaring up at that time?
Yeah, I think that is a unique thing about academy football, isn't it? You've got different players at various stages of their growth and maturation. And I think that's definitely something that, and I've walked into this environment and continued the work that we've had at AFC Bournemouth. But I did notice it when I came in, that it's a great environment for essentially focusing on what the player can do, rather than, as you said, okay, we've got a flare up of Severs, we've got a flare up of Osgoods, or even higher up, we've got a flare up of a hip traction apophysitis or something like that. But like, the player is actually not classified as injured. Like, what can we do? This is a growth and maturation symptom. There's always something that we can do, and yeah, that's been a credit to the environment that Ben Bradley set up as well over the years, and then we've walked into it and tried to continue that work. So yeah, it's important for me that, like, again, another one of my philosophies is, robustness is earned. These players they're not going to become more robust. They're not going to become better footballers sitting on a treatment table. Yes, there's absolutely times where we need to do that stuff. But for growth and maturation, most of the time, the players are arriving to training now, and they're not coming to the medical room. Like, they're going to the change room, getting changed, getting ready, heading to the gym, and they're straight into their knee or their ankle or their hip growth and maturation strength program, where we've got exercises on there that, as you said, they target the known risk factors for these conditions, in terms of range of motion and strength, and then their exercises that the lads can actually tolerate. And yeah, we've had some really good success with it. We haven't, this is my third season now, we haven't had a lot of time lost with these injuries. The way we sort of structure it is taking some load out early in the week, usually on a Monday or a Tuesday for these players, potentially a Wednesday if needed as well, if there is a really bad flare up, and trying to prioritize their last training session on a Thursday night to get through that, complete that training session, and then be eligible to play on the weekend. And yeah, it's been successful. We've had really good buy-in from the players and the parents as well, because they're not seeing this as like a time loss injury or something that's going to keep them away from doing what they want to be doing, what they enjoy. And obviously they're still getting as much development time as well to become better footballers, and maintaining that chronic load as well. Because, as you said, the easy thing to do would be to say we've got a flare up of Osgoods, and you can sit in the medical room and ice up for this session. Whereas there's actually a lot of ownership from the players now. They know their protocol. They might be on it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and often that does the job to get them back to full loads. And yeah, I've just been really impressed with that environment at Bournemouth. So I don't know if that answered your question, mate.
That what you mentioned there, Aaron, in terms of the environment, but also these are all impactful on the culture at the club as well, aren't they? And I know you've joked before about the cricket and the office cricket, and there's obviously a good relationship between the pair of you, and I'm sure that spreads across wider staff as well. But one thing we were talking about in our WhatsApp group this week on the community is the MDT and humility within the MDT, from David Rhodes' episode in the last episode about his experiences of being in these environments where you can challenge, but you can challenge in the right way. Sort of egos everyone's got the ego, but egos are sort of put aside for positive conversations. And it's all related to what you're talking about in this episode, isn't it? Like, the way that you both work together, understand both sides, come across challenges, but work together to move forward as well. And I think that's super important, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive. And, like, at the end of the day, we're all here to try and help these players achieve their goals and their ambitions. And we're a part of that, but we need, as you said, we need to be respectful of everyone's opinions, and yeah, when it's the right time to respectfully challenge things, to progress, the service we're providing to the players. And at the same time, try and enjoy yourself a little bit as well. And the players, I think the players sort of feed off that as well. They know when it's time to work hard, when to apply themselves, and when there is time to have a little bit of a laugh. And that's something that we try to do, and create enjoyable sessions like that players want to be part of, whether that's through like a multi-sports warm up, or like even things like post-game running and robustness. How can we make this a little bit more enjoyable, that the players actually want to be part of, and they actually feel bad if they're not part of it, because they see that sort of team cohesion and everyone enjoying themselves. And as George touched on a little bit, we've got great autonomy as practitioners, and that's something that Ben has allowed us at Bournemouth, which is forever thankful for. It's very good to be able to have some ideas and be able to implement them, if it's in the best interest of obviously the vision of the club and the players, and moving that program forward. Obviously everything has to align with that, but I can't speak highly enough of your sort of your MDT and that environment that you're creating day to day, because the players feed off it.
And it's kind of showed with some of the things that you've spoken about that have happened at the club in regards to, and this probably doesn't sound big to a lot of people, but in regards to players not coming straight into physio room, arriving at training, because that, especially when I was at a club, that was the norm. Like the physio room would be flooded with players before training.
Mm-hmm.
Probably for not many of them being injured, just for the fact that that's what they did. So that changing culture in terms of, like you say, them coming, getting ready, going, cracking on with their work, that's got to be a big change in itself for a lot of people. And also with what you were saying about how these like your Osgoods and your Severs is actually manipulating the training in terms of your load, because I think that again is a huge step forward, isn't it, from probably not that many years ago, where, like Jordan said, people will be taken out, stopped training, and now it's all sort of is summed up around this MDT approach, that you can push and pull in different places and give different practitioners and the players what they need at the right times. And I think those sort of patterns and changes throughout a program, they signify that there's success within the program as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think that's probably something that we're most proud of, is that sort of culture around the medical room, because often you do see it at training grounds. The medical rooms are probably one of the more comfortable rooms in the facility, isn't it? It's usually got some heating, usually got some nice comfy beds, a few chairs. It's usually isolated a little bit, so you can get away from coaches and things down that end of the building. So it's one of those ones where, like as I said, it's an important part, like having a medical room and having good facilities. You do need to use it at times. But we've done little things which I think's been, again, just doing some basic stuff and trying to communicate this to the players. It's worked quite well, where Lewis Jones, who sort of come in after Jordan, I work quite closely with him with the 15s and 16s, and we've just even had moments where we've grabbed the coach and gone, look, can we literally grab 3 minutes at the end of analysis, put one slide up on the screen, and present to the players why it's important to complete pre-season training sessions. We could put like a graph or something up like that shows, look, the more pre-season trainings that you complete, the more availability you have during the season. And we've done that with that. We've done that with post-game running, post-game robustness. It's easy to just sit there and tell the lads to do that, but if they don't actually understand why they're doing it, you don't get that buy-in, and then you can create these things where players are starting to sit in medical rooms or not wanting to do that after games. So we've been very successful with that this season. Like, we've got a culture now where the players are actually wanting to do the high-speed running post-game. They're wanting to do the robustness. They're wanting to do their prehab programs that we put together on Team Builder for them. The Osgood players are wanting to do their knee or their hip or their ankle poster, because they actually understand why they're doing it. So that's just been something that's been easy to do. We've done it with like nutrition as well. You know, it doesn't get too hot over here, but do have some hot days every now and then. So yeah, can we have the coach? Can we grab 3 minutes? Can we put a slide up? This is what you should be drinking tonight. This is what you should be drinking after the game tomorrow. This is the reason why. And the players can then actually relate to it rather than just telling them to do something. So yeah, it's been nice to see. It's yeah, as I said, something we're very proud of. And just yeah, a simple flip of that mindset of, you know, yeah, I've got this knee pain or this pain, but this is still actually an opportunity to become a better footballer from it.
I think there's loads in there, isn't there? And yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of the education side of what we're trying to do, or you're trying to do now, to the players, and why it's important. And all of a sudden, like they're clocking on and going, actually, oh, now I get it. I can actually do that, like you said. And credit to Lewis as well, because yeah, he's class and a great fit for that role. And you know, the players are looking at you two working together, because I think you both really push that, you know, that rhetoric forward in terms of can we educate. And I think what's nice, going back to the growth and maturation, but in the wider kind of program of physical performance, let's call it, at Bournemouth and similar clubs, when you're trying to push things like biobanding, and you're really trying to be hot on growth and maturation, and you're measuring regularly, and you're trying to track where players' growth are, and then obviously the physical side as well, and how that relates. The important thing is you've got to then push that information out to the players and the parents, and why. And I know certainly when I was there, and I'm sure there's still are, Aaron, you can tell me if they are, you know, the meetings with the parents and the information of why biobanding's happened, why we're tracking your growth and maturation. You know, I remember all the handouts on Osgoods and Severs that were going out to the parents, and because it's a very transparent environment, parents are understanding. And let's face it, you know, parents are key stakeholders in academy football. You know, they are a massive part of it. So if their understanding is better, the players' understanding gets better. Then when you're face-to-face talking with players about why it's important, like Aaron said, like him and Lewis putting slides up at the end of analysis, you know, there's no harm in it, that you're just sharing some information on why we're trying to do what we're trying to do, and then the players buy into it, and then, or before you know it, the program's, you know, improving, almost self-driven by the players, which is really important. And I think that is how you push culture forward. That's just my opinion. Some people might say otherwise, but I definitely think keeping all, you know, the information to yourselves and not sharing it with players. And there are still things that clubs can do better, don't get me wrong. I found that now working in a private environment, that sometimes they don't always know why clubs are doing things. But there are some clubs which don't share anything with the players. And I think, Aaron, I'm sure you'll back this up, that the understanding you'll see now from certainly the Osgood sufferers, you know, that their language is probably now at a point where you wouldn't really thought it 5-10 years ago, where a kid would have just come in and gone, my knee's hurt, I can't do anything. Whereas now it might actually be, right, I know why my knee's hurt. How can I help? What can I do? Is this going to help, you know, alleviate some of the pain around my kneecap? You know, just to have maybe a 13, 14-year-old actually saying those sorts of words, which I know they do now, that must make your job a lot easier.
Yeah, as I said, it's very fulfilling to see that happening now. Like even with our, you know, we look at the three sort of main buckets of your growth and maturation injuries that you generally get across the 9s to 16s, and you got your severs, which is the posterior ankle, your Osgood Schlatter disease, which is the tibial tuberosity, and then you get a hip apophysitis a little bit higher up. They're sort of the three common things that we see. Like we're not actually using that terminology now. So the evidence in informed and based posters that I've put together, or that we've put together for those three buckets, I would literally call them ankle pathway to the pitch, knee pathway to the pitch, hip pathway to the pitch. So the players aren't actually, they don't even know what it's called now. Like obviously we say this to the parents and things like that to communicate that information, but yeah, you change the language, you change the behavior pretty quickly. Because yeah, it always sort of amazed me when you have like, you know, a 10-year-old player come up to you and go, I've got Sever's disease. Like, even think of the terminology of what it's called, like a disease, like it's negative, and it causes negative behaviors. So being able to change that language, to change the behavior has been massive. And then to touch on what you said, yeah, massive stakeholders are the parents in academy football. So then, as a practitioner, you have to be able to communicate that information in a context that they can understand as well. So you find yourself having conversations with a player, then you've got to go outside and find that parent in the car park and have the same conversation, but then communicate it in a way that they can understand. So that's probably, while I'm chatting about it, another important skill, not just for physios, but for sports scientists and strength and conditioning coaches, being able to communicate your information in a way that that person can understand. And it's going to be different based on, the personality type. You might be chatting to a parent with a dominant personality type who's a successful businessman or something like that, and then you're trying to communicate the same information to an under 9 player who's never had an injury before. So yeah, they're important skills to have, and I find if you can get that stuff right, you then change behavior pretty quickly, and that sort of goes right through our program, even with how we sit down as a performance department and chat about these things throughout the season. It's how can we keep this message positive? How can we change that behavior so that this is not becoming a problem that is going to adversely affect the players' opportunity to progress their life as well. With you get the wrong advice early on, that can definitely sort of progress through to the rest of your life, and back this process as well. There's always going to be times where people don't agree with maturation risk factors or biobanding and various things like that. But if you stay strong with your message, you justify what you're doing, you're more likely to get that buy-in, because at the end of the day, we're not doing this stuff to upset people. We're doing it in the best interests of what we think is going to help the players progress and give them the best chance of achieving their, obviously staying in good health, but then also achieving their football ambitions as well.
I love the approach of sort of the less is more as well, though, because like you mentioned, with just sort of piggybacking on to the analyst meetings and giving enough information, being very sort of precise in terms of what you're putting up there, it just that says a lot for players, doesn't it? And that is more likely to get questions from players, gauge interest from players, than standing up there doing a full all singing, all dancing presentation. So I think that's interesting as well, and a really good point from yourself for other coaches to listen to is that if players are in a meeting, whether it's an analyst or whatever sort of meeting it is there a way that you can utilize that where they're sat down in that sort of environment ready to listen, where you could just give them just a little bit to go, here, go and think about that, whether it is nutrition or whatever it is that you've spoken about there. It's just an opportunity, isn't it? And it's a good opportunity to get into players' minds.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I think what are we, 9 weeks into the season now, that Lewis and I have tried to do a few of those presentations, and it's amazing. Like, the players will come up to you in the coming days and be like, "Oh, that actually makes sense now. I get why we're doing this." And we've all been in lectures and meetings and stuff that are too long, and after 10, 20 minutes, you're thinking about other things. So yeah, in 3 minutes, it's a good thing to practice. How do I get this message across in a way that they understand, whether it's a table or a graph or a keyword or even like a picture of a player that they can relate to, that they look up to, using that stuff to your advantage to get that buy-in. And it's the same with parents as well. It's just a different, again, you just have to work out their communication styles and then adjust it to that. So yeah, very positive so far. We've had a really good pre-season, across the 9s to 16s, and now into the season. So always need a bit of luck with anything that you do. But yeah, we're seeing some good results so far with that.
Jordan, just to bring things to a close, have you got any sort of final questions, thoughts for Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I like to ask these weird questions anyway, but where do you see the future? You spoke on it earlier in terms of long gone are the days we hope and we believe that physio over here, sports scientists and S&C over here, and then we'll get in a meeting and we'll try and meet somewhere in the middle. It's much more of that closed sort of MDT approach now, and they're all closer together. Get your crystal ball out. 10 years time, how do you see the shape of a performance department? Do you see it as you still have your physios, you still have your sports scientists, your S&C, or do you see maybe specific roles appearing, things like they already are there, aren't they, like rehab specialist roles? Do you see on pitch specialist physios, all that sort of stuff? Where do you see the future of sort of performance science or performance, physical performance in the future?
Yeah, it's another good question. I think with the way that the EPPP has gone, I still think you're going to have people in roles such as a physiotherapist, a sports scientist. I think you still will have that, but I think you will have to have an understanding across that whole integrated model and performance. So I think that's going to become a very common thing where, for example, again, I'm speaking as a physio, a physio may have to be competent and confident to take someone through a squat or a lunge or something like that, and some basic run mechanics. I think that is going to be very important. But I think as an MDT, it's going to be having people in those roles and then giving them the autonomy to play that role really well. I still think you are going to have the need for someone who might be a very, very good manual therapist and very, very good in the first 2 weeks after an acute injury. We know that if you get that stuff right, that can really speed up and accelerate your rehab processes. So it's probably going to be more of a specialist generalist model, but maybe having just autonomy those roles to really play that role well, then sit at the table and understand what someone in stage 6 of your return to performance protocol is talking about, and how what you did in that first 2 weeks has actually influenced and knocked 2 or 3 weeks off that process, and so try to, as best you can, mitigate the risk of that happening again by treating the root cause of maybe what's happened to cause that injury. So yeah, I think that's probably where it's going. And then the other things, with the data that we collect, I think we so much of it, it's going to be a little bit like what we spoke about. How can we present that to players and other stakeholders across the club as well? It might even be the managers or the CEOs or people like that. Like, how do we get better at presenting what it actually all means, rather than just collecting it, and what are the trends with that? What have we found that collecting this piece of information is we're more likely to sustain this injury, so then what can we do about it? So there might be people in those roles more like a data science, and we're seeing these roles start to become more prominent in the industry now. How can we link in with those people to better use the information that we're collecting to have better outcomes for the players?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, thinking about how it'll look. But I think you raised some really good points there, especially around the EPPP as well. To think from the discussions we've had, Jordan, we've sort of thought about the differences and what it would look like, and it's true. Like the EPPP will guide it to a point as well, because that's what clubs are going off. But no, that's really interesting to hear. Obviously, both sides of yourselves working together, and also the changes and progressions that you've made on the program at the club as well. So I really appreciate you both coming on. Aaron, just wrap us up by giving, if people want to reach out, if they've got questions for you, where would you direct them?
Yeah, to contact me, LinkedIn is probably the best way to get hold of me. More than happy to help people out. I've definitely had to do that and build my network from back in Australia over many years. So I understand how hard that can be for people. And so yeah, contact me via LinkedIn, and also I'll try my very best to get to a few network meetings this year if time permits.
Definitely, it'd be great to have you there. And Jordan, just one more question for the Ashes, the office Ashes. What's the score?
I'll be honest, that Aaron was very difficult to dislodge. He was a very good batsman, and he did bowl a good, delivery as well. So unfortunately, I think the Aussies might be winning the office Ashes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was annoying because I felt like before Aaron came in, I thought I had the better of everyone in the office, and then Aaron came along, he was definitely kingpin and knocked me off my perch. So yeah, it was quite frustrating, but he's a good bloke, so I let him off.
Appreciate the kind words, mate. Yeah, we had some good battles, but it was always a pitch where you bat well, you get runs, bowl well, you get wickets. So enjoyable times. We didn't play that much. We
did do work. I will point that out. We did actually do work. It's very important that gets out there.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. But that was class. Thank you very much for coming on, Aaron, and Jordan. Thanks for co-hosting again, mate. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon.
No worries.
No, thank you very much, guys, and keep up the good work. It's been a platform that has been, so crucial to my development over the years. And I joined in the early days, and it's been amazing to see how you've progressed it and where it's heading to. So yeah, keep up the good work, and we'll catch up shortly.
Nice one, mate.
Now, Jordan, episode 305 in the bag. Obviously, former colleague Aaron on the podcast. It was great I thought it was really interesting, actually, with the perspectives of you both speaking from each side, and just hearing from the physiotherapy side, but also S&C side, and then also how things have transitioned and some of the results that have come from the program, which I know you're not at the club anymore, but I know you have been involved in that process as well. So it was really interesting, wasn't it, speaking with him and catching up with him?
Yeah, 100%. It's always nice. Unfortunately, I do go back in relatively regularly, so I get to see a bit of it as well, sort of thing. And when you speak about Lewis and what him and Lewis are together now with the 916s program, and really running a good program, which is really nice, because obviously that used to be my role to see it, going really strong. You kind of go, this is class. It's really nice. It's a good feeling. So I just think, like I said, I've worked with Aaron. I've seen him work firsthand, and I can speak very, very highly of him as a practitioner. But I think what's really nice is his S&C knowledge. He was underplaying it a little bit. He's been very modest. I think it's really top notch. So some of the rehab plans and the detail that he goes into with some players is really high. So as an S&C coach, and when I'm saying the detail, it's not just that early stage treatment like he's talking about. It's the full program sort of thing. So if you're the S&C coach or sports scientist or physical performance coach, let's just call it that, who's then going to be taking that player and back into sort of structured gym sessions with the team, or out on the pitch in terms of change of direction sessions, whatever it might be, you're already at way more of an advantage, because you've basically got like a cheat sheet of the person who's treated them from day one. This is the recommendation, and I'm not saying like Aaron or any physio for this matter gives you the program and goes, right, I've got to follow that by the letter, but you have a cheat sheet in front of you, and you go, cool, right, I kind of know how this is going to set out. Actually, I think we could also add in this. Aaron, what do you think? Yeah, great. And that was how it worked. So like when he was talking about cutting down, safely shaving off a few days from a player getting back early because you've done the process really well, that genuinely can happen if you get the process right. And again, it just comes from collaboration and a good MDT approach. But I think also, like you said there, being the generalist specialist or specialist generalist, always get it the wrong way around. When you've got foot in both camp sort of thing, it massively helps. No, I'm never going to claim to be a physio sports therapist. I can't do that sort of thing. So when I get to see Aaron and other guys that I work with as well at the minute now doing their thing in terms of physio rehab and all that sort of thing, you go, wow, that's incredible. So then when they can come over into sort of the S&C side or start to put those programs together, and then you're sitting down and talking through it, you get that little feeling. You go, yeah, this is good. This is going to be good. Yeah, we're hitting all the right notes here. So yeah, it's nice to be able to share good when you've worked with a good practitioner. It's nice to be able to share some of their good work as well. So yeah, strength to strength definitely with the program there, and it's good to get him on.
I think that it was really interesting hearing, like I said, both sides, but then he also underlined the point of staying in your lane as well. So not crossing over to the point where he's starting to dictate everything that players are doing for the S&C, but he's got the understanding there to assist and to work together and work collaboratively with the coaches as well. So I thought that was a really interesting point. Just that understanding from each side, and also kind of what you mentioned with the presentations. It's the fact of he talked about nutrition. He talked about the importance of like the pre-season period, and that was some of the examples of presenting to players. I think when you've got someone like that in his position, it's another voice getting the message out that you're trying to get out anyway, isn't it? So he's obviously spoke to sports science, S&C, and it's like, right, the message for nutrition that we're trying to get to the players is this. And if he's then echoing what someone else is saying, maybe it is coming from nutritionists or sports science or whoever, it's just another voice pushing that message, isn't it? Which makes it even more effective. Yeah. And it seems very aligned, that message as well. So very clear for players, which I think is great. I love the phrase that he used around robustness is earned, because I think that sort of defines it for players, that you're not just going to become robust and be able to handle the loads. You've got to do the work. And that underlines what we said about that transition from players coming into the training ground, going into the physio room, or players coming to the training ground, getting changed and cracking on with the robustness work that they need to get done. So I think that was really interesting to hear as well. Just looking what else I've written down. Yeah, I've got written quite a bit from this one, to be fair. But the injuries are opportunities. He underlined that massively, didn't he? And then the other thing was just the opportunity to educate, like in the meetings, like we said about all those different points of contact. Barry just spoke about this, didn't he? That the different contact points throughout a day, throughout a week. For you as a practitioner, whatever role you're in, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to influence and educate players in either a positive way or maybe in some cases a negative way as well. So choosing wisely what you do in those opportunities is really key. But no, it was he seems like a top guy, obviously someone that you get on with well. And the other thing I wrote down was what you said at the start, is a good bloke. Because I think that gets missed a lot of the time as well, doesn't it? The fact that, yes, you can work together, but the fact that he was very easy to get on with, I'm guessing for you, made it a hell of a lot easier in terms of the professional side as well, to have conversations.
Yeah, 100%. And I won't lie, with the Physical Performance Hub, I've constantly tried to say, when you're done with club football, mate, the Performance Hub could do with a full-time physio as well. Because, yeah, if you get on with someone, you work with them better. And in my opinion, the results are better. And, I know we joked about the office cricket, but if you have that sort of, bond and you get on with somebody, you will go above and beyond just through natural sort of friendship. Because I don't mind helping a mate out, so if it's a case of little silly things like on a match day, sometimes the sports scientist can be running around everywhere. If the physio or the sports therapist isn't treating anyone, they might have a bit of free time in their hands where they're kind of waiting for the match to start, whereas sports scientists might be trying to get the bands out, fill the waters, get the hydros ready, all that sort of thing. And if he's a good bloke and he doesn't mind helping, he might muck in as well and help out. And certainly on away days, if if the boss is late or whatever and things like that, it can be, everyone knows it can be a bit chaos at times. Some people won't, that's not my lane. I'm not getting it involved. But sometimes when they're good people, they just get involved and get stuck in. And I think that's definitely the advantage of someone like Aaron and people that you get on with, whatever role. You know, everyone's got those people that they can get on with, and they roll the sleeves up and get on with it. It just makes the job better, 100%. So, yeah, definitely a good egg.
Awesome to wrap that one up. Just before I forget, go and check out sponsors, Hytro, Rezzil, and the Good Prep. And if you're listening to this before whatever date Monday is, which will be the 2nd of September, we've got a very big announcement coming next week. That's all I'm going to say. But if you do listen to it before that date, make sure you check out our socials on Monday, the 2nd of September, because it's something we've been working on behind the scenes for a little while now, and it's a very big step forward for Football Fitness Federation. So keep an eye out for that, and then we'll reveal more in the next podcast. We can have a bit more of an open conversation about it as well. But for now, Jordan, stay tight-lipped, and we'll leave it at that. But thank you very much for coming on, mate. I thought it was really good to have you on with him, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Not a problem.